Do you think it's impossible to pick out chords in a song just by listening to it? This is a skill, and just like everything else we learn here, not impossible at all. Join me today to take your first step to building your musical ear. So stay tuned. Hello and welcome, friends, to this episode of the Play Guitar Podcast. I am Lee, and this is the podcast that's determined to make you a better guitar player. No matter if you're just starting out or you've been playing for years, this is the show that will help you become the guitarist that you always wanted to be. If you are new here, make sure you subscribe to the podcast and check out the description for all of the links from the show. I am so happy to be spending some time with you, 25 minutes. We're going to be talking about listening to music, listening to songs, trying to figure the chords out by ear, and what are the first steps that you take so that you can master this. I'm going to be very, very well versed in this because I just recorded the whole podcast and looked over and none of the audio recorded. So we're going to do this again. So I'm on it. I am on it today. We're going to be talking about harmony. Well, what's the musical triangle? Musical triangle I talk about, especially in all my courses. These are the things that each side of the musical triangle needs to be represented in anything that you do musically. That's harmony, melody, and rhythm. Chords, scales, and rhythm. And we're going to be talking about harmony today. How to hear harmony. How do we solve that puzzle? Just like anything else, you start small and you build. And we're going to start small today. These are going to be your first steps to building your ear. And we're going to use the guitar as our crutch. It's going to help us figure these things out and create pathways in our brain so that when we hear these things, it goes right to what we do on the guitar. Guitar players, we're usually prone to skipping things. Very important things. We don't care. We want to get to the fun stuff, right? We'd skip any skill that wasn't fun. We want it all. We want it now. And we want to be able to do it all now, right? But those who ultimately succeed with the guitar have learned how to be patient and steady with their practice, but still keep pushing themselves along. That's what I want for you today. So we're going to be doing something called the matching game. We're going to be not the match game from the 70s, a little off-color afternoon game show there. No, we're going to be doing the matching game. We're going to be taking the things that we know and match them to the things that we're listening to and see if we can figure some stuff out. So in the beginning here, we're going to talk about, let's get our footing here. What are some things that we need to do to put our first foot forward towards this goal of being able to hear something and play it right away? Well, we got to spend time listening critically. So for most, especially the beginner guitar players, their listening to music is over here, and the practicing of the music is over here. They're in very different places. I do that for fun over there, and I do this practicing to eventually have fun, right? So this is enjoyment, and this is working towards a goal. But what we're going to try to do is we're going to try and bring those two things together. When you listen to music, I want you to start to listen to certain things. Listen to the rhythms. See if there's any rhythms that you find familiar. Anything that reminds you of another song. These are all important things. Listen for qualities of these songs that stick out to you. Something where your brain goes, I know that. Where is that from? It's kind of like smells. They say when you smell something, it brings memories back very strongly, right? We've all had that. Something that reminds you of your grandparents' house or something, anything, any smell that reminds you of something. This is what we're trying to do. We're trying to get music into that same space. So when you hear something that sounds familiar, especially when you relate common songs, this is something to remember, even to write down. We're going to start to try and take the things that we hear and make sure that the things that we already know are connected to those things. The next thing I want you to do when you listen to music critically is I want you to focus on the beginnings and the endings of the songs. The beginning of the song. Does that chord sound strong? Does the beginning of the song sound like it comes in on the one chord? It comes in on the solid foundation, or does it sound like it's kind of up in the air? Maybe it's tense. Maybe it's building towards something there. And in the ending of the song, when you hear that last chord, does it feel finished? Does it feel over? Or, sometimes, especially when you hear a song that fades out, maybe the last chord you hear isn't really the strongest chord. Maybe it leaves you up in the air a little bit there. Maybe that was the point of doing it that way, fading it out, to end on a chord that's maybe not so strong. When we first start out trying to figure these things, we're just trying to find the lowest note. So I know my song starts with a chord that I have this E here and it ends with this E here. Okay, we're in some sort of an E. As we've done that, now let's listen to the rest of the chords as we go through. Start going up and down, maybe just the low string if you want, and try and match these low notes to the low notes of those chords. But be careful with this, because what you're going to hear the strongest is the bass line, the bass player underneath those chords. And most of the time, the bass player is going to be playing the root of that chord, the strong note of that chord. Tonic is the strong note of the whole deal. Roots are the strong notes of just the individual chords. When I was going to school in university, I had a lot of professors who would use those two words interchangeably. Now, it seems very particular that when you say tonic, that's the overall one of the chord, the strongest of the whole chord progression or the whole song. And root of the chord is just for any of the chords in there, whatever the strong note for that one is. So we're looking for roots now as we go through the song. Root, 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 root. When this chord's being played, the B is the lowest note, right? So pretty much most of the time you'll know that, that's some sort of a B chord. But be careful, because the bass line isn't always the root of the chord. Sometimes it might be like a slash chord. For example, the D over F sharp. I know you've all seen that. What that means is the D chord with an F sharp in the bass. So we have to kind of pay attention for those things there. But that doesn't happen so often. But now we're playing along the song. We're playing the song just one note. We're like being a bass player with our guitar, one noting it as we go through. Write them down. Okay, here's my one notes. It goes from E to G to A to B, maybe something like that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start applying harmony to this. Go back to the first chord. And when you start the song, we know it's an E of some sort. So play an E major and then play an E minor over that. Which one matches? I told you we're doing the matching game, right? Which one of those two chords matches this song? Okay. In our instance, it's E minor, right? This song happens to have a one chord, the first chord, E minor, and it is the strongest chord. If I played this and turned everything off and went home, I would feel like that song was finished. I wouldn't feel up in the air. And then you could go to the end of the song. Is that the last chord? Well, then we pretty much know the most important thing we need to know. This is some sort of chord progression in E minor. The one chord, we know the strongest chord, we know the tonic note, and then we know what the harmony for the other chords should be. It's some sort of an E minor chord progression. And now we're doing the same thing we did to the tonic. Every time we have that new chord playing, I know it's an A, I figured out that bass note, I'm going to play it either major or minor. Which one matches, right? And then we write it down. We have an E minor and an A minor. I figured that out. It was not happy. It was a sad chord there, right? Sometimes you might hear a note in there as well, a decoration note, or even just a seventh note. Sometimes you'll get to a chord, this would be like a minor seventh sound, right? You might find something that's a dominant seventh sound. It still matches that either major or minor triad, but there's some other things in there. We'll get to that at a later date, being able to pick out seventh chords and their different functions that they have. But this system will work whether you're playing seventh chords or triads, because a triad basically is the root, the third, and the fifth of any chord, right? Well, a seventh chord has a root, third, a fifth, and then a seventh. So the difference between those two is an extra note. So if I played an A dominant seventh and then an A triad, they'll still match. Just the other one has another note in there, but it won't clash. It will still have that happy sound. As we go through this, we can have a tool that makes these things a lot easier. And this is called the diatonic chord family. You can go to episode 12, long time ago, episode 12. And that was what chords sound good together on the guitar, and learn all about diatonic chord families. A chord that's built off of the first note of the scale is usually major in a major chord progression. Second is minor. Third is minor. Fourth is major. Fifth is major. Sixth is minor. And seventh is diminished. Major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished. It's a very important thing to remember. It's in most songs. But what if you had a minor chord progression, kind of like we're doing today, right? Well, it uses that same formula. It just starts in a different place. We start at that last minor. So now a 1 chord is minor, 2 chord is diminished, 3 chord is major, 4 chords minor, 5 chords minor, the 6th is major, and the 7th is major. So if I knew this E minor, this fictitious song that we're working on, right? And we found that the A chord in the song, we did our trial and error. We played a major and a minor. We found out, well, this was also a minor. Which one does that match? Well, it matches a minor chord progression, right? Usually in a minor chord progression, the 4th chord is minor, and that's how it is in this there. So it comes from that family of chords. And you're going to find that most times, that the chords you're going to find come from the family. What happens if it doesn't work that way? What happens if you have a chord that's E minor and the 4 chord happens to sound a major when you did your trial and error test? Oh, that A is a major now. Well, that doesn't work out. Then you're dealing with something called borrowed chords. And this is where songwriters, they try to spice their songs up by pulling some of the chords from the other side. So we talked about the 2 types of progressions. There's the major and then the minor. So in a major chord progression, in E, the 4 chord would be major. So if I had a 1 chord minor and a 4 chord major, it's a neat sound. It's not diatonic. It's a borrowed chord. It's borrowed from the minor type progressions. And you can find all about borrowed chords. We did it recently, episode 342. Okay, so we've done some trial and error. We found our tonic note. We found our tonic chord. We found the root notes of the other chords. We figured out whether they were major-based or minor-based chords, right? And then we plugged those into the chord progressions. So whether it's a 1 chord, 4 chord, and 5 chord. So we're doing some really important first steps. But you might say, well, this is not what I ultimately want to do. I don't want to have to go through all these steps. I just want to do this by ear. Well, let me tell you something. The fastest way to build your ear is to dive right in and repeat this process over and over again. The first time you repeat it, some things you're doing, they won't take much review. You won't have to go to your notes very often. You've probably figured out the general process. It's not difficult to do. But you have some things you have to look back and say, oh, what am I supposed to do now? Oh, okay, I hear that. Your brain is thinking about the process more than it's doing listening. But the next time you try this on the next song, you're going to repeat this and you won't struggle as much this time. You'll start to breeze through it a little bit and say, oh, okay, this is this chord. And it starts to get familiar. The next time you repeat, you might try to do it without any notes at all. The next time you do it, you might start to refine the process, do things quicker. So you don't have to go 1, 2, 3. You might have some stuff kind of on autopilot. The next time you try to do that, you're going to start to hear some things. Your brain's going to be freed up from thinking about the process, and it's going to start listening to what you're playing and what you're hearing. And you're going to be able to hear the chords easier. The next time you might be able to categorize the chords easier. That 1 to 4 chord is the same as this song is in this song. And I already played this song. That's a solid connection in your brain. And then the next time, even easier, to the point where now you can listen to a piece of music And you don't have to go through the process. You can say, that sounds like a 4 chord and it's minor, so it's diatonic. Like that. So this is how you do it, right? Well, it takes time. So what are you waiting for? Start today. Don't put this off. These are the first steps to opening up a new world of musicianship for you. And as you can see, it's not very difficult. It's just got steps. It's not super exciting. But the exciting part is when you get to the other side and you'll be able to hear things you never thought possible. And in places you never thought possible. Whenever you hear music, you might be able to relate that back to your guitar if you're driving or if you're walking around anywhere, right? You'll be able to use these things to your advantage in all aspects of music. And I had fun. What we go? Oh yeah, we're coming up. We're just under 20 minutes. That was a lot of fun hanging out with you today, talking a little about building your ear musically. I still have my $7 chord elevation toolkit. It's still open for sale, and it's over at playguitaracademy.com/chord elevation toolkit. There's a link in the description. This is going to help you with embellishments for chords. So have you ever seen someone playing chords and they seem to be improvising? They start to add notes to the chords, adds a little bit of rhythm, adds a little bit of harmony to those things, and makes your chord playing very, very interesting. What I did was I took all of the open position chords and I went string by string through each chord and showed you what notes you can add to it, what notes you can take away, what notes you can hammer on and pull off. I also had a bonus section for double stops. What double stops can you do around this chord? And it doesn't take long to go through, but if you don't know how to do embellishments, this is going to put you into overdrive right there. And it's only $7. You can go grab that over at the link. And I'm going to go ahead and call it. That's a wrap. Thank you for joining me today for the Play Guitar podcast. Make sure to hit the button below to subscribe to the show. And if you've benefited from this podcast, please leave a favorable Apple Podcast iTunes review. It's the best way to make sure we get this very valuable content to more guitar players around the world. And if more help, structure, and results in your guitar playing sounds good to you, I am over at Play Guitar Academy, and I am looking forward to helping you move forward on the guitar. And I will see you next week. Bye-bye.